Let's talk today a little bit about boundaries
Mm-hmm.
and control
Mm.
and the difference between the two. And let's use some of our story because you lived with an addict for 23 years. And
Well, I only lived with you for 9.5 years.
yeah, you inherited the previous bunch of years of addiction. And it was obviously, there was a lot of talk around that from an addiction point of view. And then we had all the chaos in our marriage.
Mm.
With regards to affairs, and folks that we deal with are also talking about, how do I set a healthy boundary? What is a boundary?
Mm.
More often than not, people
Get it wrong.
will get it wrong, right?
Mm.
Will exert control thinking that it's a boundary. So I think
Mm.
would be really helpful if you talked us through the difference between control and a boundary and how to set a healthy boundary.
Mm. So I really never understood that. The first time I'd ever heard the word boundary, I was in a support group for codependents. And at that stage, you were in the support group for um,
Addicts.
addicts.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember them saying things like, when if he messes up again, then you've got to give him a consequence. Like there's got to be a boundary. The problem was that I was in this group. Majority of the people were um, like parents of addicts, and so some of the boundaries or consequences that they spoke of was if the child uses drugs, then take their phone away for a week, or if they break curfew, then don't give them the car again, or something to that effect. And I just kept thinking to myself, he's a grown man. I can't take his cell phone away. I can't take his credit card away. I can't stop him from driving. Like, this is absurd. How am I ever going to change Ren? How am I ever going to get him to stop this behavior? And so because my understanding of a boundary was it's to control you, nothing I did worked. Um, and so it was very, very much later on. In fact, it was when we were separated that I really truly came to understand the difference between boundaries and rules. Now, rules are things we put in place to try to control another person. Think about a family life, right? There are rules in the home. So you cannot watch TV until your homework is complete. You cannot, go play outside unless your room is tidy. Things like that. Those are rules in order to control behavior, which is totally fine in that relationship, that setting. But the minute you start doing that to your spouse, you take yourself out of the romantic relationship and into a parent-child relationship. And no one wants to sleep with their parents.
Sure.
No one is romantically attracted to their parents. So what's the difference?
Well, the difference between controlling someone and setting a boundary is control means I am trying to do something to make you change your behavior, or I'm trying to say something to get you to see my point of view. And you can't control another human being.
Good
A
point.
boundary is something that you put in place to keep yourself safe.
And it doesn't always necessarily, when we say the word safe, I think people automatically assume danger. But it could be safe from being spoken to badly, or safe from being used. Those things are very real as well. So having boundaries in place to protect yourself from that kind of behavior is totally okay as well.
100%. So setting a boundary looks something like, I am not okay with the way that you're behaving towards me. I can't change the way that you behave. But if you behave in that way, this is what I'm going to do in order to take myself out of harm's way. So perhaps talk through because there's 3 steps to setting a boundary. Talk us through that.
Okay. So step 1 is you make the request, right? So if it's okay, can I use our example?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I just preface this? Is preface the right word?
It's a great word.
Okay. Can I just preface this by saying that it was the most terrifying thing I have ever done. So if the thought of communicating a boundary to your spouse makes you shake or makes you cry or makes you angry, like whatever emotion you feel, it's okay. It's okay. It is really unnerving. especially if you've never done it. Okay, so step one is you make your request.
Give us an example.
Our example. I really want to resolve this issue with you, but I cannot allow you to continue to yell and scream at me.
Let me set the stage. I'm
Okay.
6'7" and 230 pounds. I'm a big guy. You are not a big girl.
No,
you are a tiny
little
girl.
bitty.
And although I never raised my hands at you, I used to raise my voice and use my size to intimidate you. So I would get in your face and stick my finger in your face and shout at the top of my lungs to get my way. So that was not obviously
Bad.
ashamed of that and not proud of that at all.
Yeah.
But that was the way that it used to be. So during our separation, you learn about boundaries, your request. We're on the phone, we have a disagreement during our separation. I, in normal Ren fashion, raise my voice, I start shouting at you. You say.
Well, interesting. We've just recorded a video, and you should really check that one out, about working on yourself, right? And so this was a perfect opportunity for me to not meet like for like. So because let's just be honest, even though you did that, there were times that I would yell and scream back at you. And so I was feeding this, it's okay, this is how we communicate in this relationship. Now I want to put a stop to that, but this is how we've been doing things for 9.5 years. How am I going to do that? And so I uncover, this is my boundary. I don't want to be yelled and screamed at anymore. It's not okay behavior. And so you lose your temper and you are yelling and screaming at me on the phone. And I very calmly say to you, this is very important. You have to remain calm. You can be shaking on the inside, but you have got to remain calm.
Yeah.
The minute you lose control and then start yelling your boundary, you are no longer communicating a boundary. You are now, even if you're saying the right things, because of the anger it's coming across with, it's not going to be heard as a boundary. So remain calm and make your request known. I really want to resolve this with you, but I cannot allow you to continue to yell and scream at me. And then the next step in creating a boundary is communicating. If it continues, because sometimes someone will just submit to the request. They just go, okay, no, you're right. I'm sorry I yelled, and then there's really no need to kind of continue. But if it does continue, you have to, this is so tricky to communicate because it can feel like a rule, but basically you're going to communicate, if you continue to do this, then this is what I'm going to do, which sounds a little bit like tit for tat, but it's not, because what I'm going to do is something that is in my control. Okay. And it's something that protects me. So if you continue to yell and scream, I'm going to remove myself from this situation. I'm protecting me. I understand that you're angry, but I need to protect me because this behavior is not okay. And then the final step in setting a boundary is the most difficult, and that is following through. It took everything inside of me when you continued to yell on that phone call to hang up the phone. And I was shaking because I knew what was coming. And I did. I got the giant all capital letters, WhatsApp, who the hell do you think you are, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But there is, sorry, my nose was drippy. But there is no point in trying to, at that stage, resolve a conflict with somebody who's flooding. So I had to do it. I had to follow through on my boundary so that you knew it existed, because this is often what we do. If you do that, I'm going to do this. And then they do it. And we don't do this. And then they do it again. And we don't do this. And we get upset at that person because they're breaking our boundary. But actually, the person you're upset with is yourself, because you didn't follow through on protecting yourself.
Yeah.
So you're angry with the person because the truth is, a random stranger could come off the street and yell and scream at me. I don't have any control over other people's behavior. What I do have control over is I don't need to endure that. So I can turn around and walk away.
Yeah. And so we talk about pushes and pulls, right? In a relationship. A pull is any behavior that evokes a positive emotion in your spouse, and a push is any behavior that evokes a negative emotion in your spouse. And what we're trying to do when we're trying to save our marriage is to eradicate the pushes completely and work on the pulls. However,
boundaries.
Sometimes there are things called necessary pushes. So if you're trying to save your marriage, you might be panicky about putting a boundary in place because you're thinking this is definitely going to push my spouse away. But this is a necessary push, because what you're doing is you're laying the foundation for what your marriage is going to look like when it reconciles.
Yes.
It's really important that you recognize the long-term goal of this, the impact, so that you change the dynamic going forward. Will it be a push? Yes, absolutely. It will be a push. I lost my mind on the other side of the phone. Who the hell does this woman think she is, putting the phone down on me? Blah, like some sort of. Never mind the fact that I'd been screaming and shouting at you and it's disgusting behavior. I felt so disrespected, and that's probably what's going to happen with your spouse. So understand that it'll be a push. Understand that you have to stay calm. It's so important. But know that it's incredibly necessary. It's absolutely crucial for you to be safe and okay, to be able to focus on yourself and not endure some sort of abuse, and also to lay the foundation for your marriage when it reconciles.
Now, as a stonewaller, I can imagine that must have felt like, oh, there we go again, her just, running away from an issue. And here's what makes the difference is a while later, and I think it was probably a couple of days, I sent you a text back saying, hey, I know things really didn't go well the other day, but I do want to resolve that issue with you. So when you have a gap, please let me know and we can call and talk it through.
Yeah.
And by then you had calmed down enough, and we did actually resolve something. And you were still angry with me, and it was still frustrating, but you're so right when you say that it sets the tone for our marriage, because we've been reconciled now for almost 5 years, and you haven't raised your voice even once in those 5 years.
Because, in the words of Dr. Phil, you teach people how to treat you.
You do the accent way better.
It's just because I wish I was from the south of America, that's all.
Babe, you've got more Southern blood in you than you've got South African blood in you.
I think I'll wear the cowboy hat for the next video.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'll wear mine. Because mine's dorky.
Nice.
And it's not really a cowboy hat. Okay, so I think we've pretty much covered what it looks like to set a boundary. And I think we've covered the fact that it is terrifying. Now, what the opposite looks like is like what you described, trying to control someone, trying to get them to see it your way, trying to get them to want to treat you better.
Why won't you stop? Why won't you do what I tell you to do? Why won't, like, the question?
Can't you see that this
100%.
is bad? That when you enter a negotiation, you are now bidding for control. You're not setting a boundary.
Yeah.
And like I said, step 3, following through on the boundary, is crucial. And this applies to your children as well. I mean, if you think about a child that throws a tantrum, if you cave to that tantrum, you are teaching the child that, okay, throw the tantrum and then you'll get what you want. And so if you now try and rein that behavior in, and the next time he throws a tantrum, you don't cave, that tantrum will go much longer than the previous one. But it'll just take 2 or 3 for you to have regained control. The other key with boundaries is obviously keep them to a minimum. You don't want to have so many boundaries that the person can't even get to you.
Yeah, absolutely. We used to work with a gentleman, amazing guy, who had a client who said that she wanted to bring boundaries, that she wanted to communicate to her husband, and when she brought the boundaries, there were, I don't know how many, 100, 80 something, like an inordinate...
Even if it's 20.
An inordinate amount of boundaries, and his response was, 100? Lady, God only has 10. So yeah, absolutely try to keep them to a minimum. This is not about, again, controlling and arranging your life so that things go your way. It's so that you protect your, it's really important. And if you'd like to talk through what that looks like, because understanding what is toxic and destructive to you versus something that you just don't like is really important, because if you don't distinguish between those things, you end up like the lady with the 100 boundaries, right?
Yeah,
And
or
so
rules.
yeah, absolutely. And so if you need some help distinguishing between what's controlling behavior and what is a healthy boundary, we'd love to walk that road with you. Click the links below. You can book a coaching call with me or with my amazing wife. We also have a community. You can join that by clicking the link below as well. We love you guys. You're our heroes. You're incredible for standing for your marriage. Babe, you're amazing. Thank you so much for your insight. And we all benefit from having you in our lives. You're amazing. See you next time.